A pleasant day to each and everyone. We are the group 9 and today we will discuss to you about the 9th Commandment, or you shall not covet your neighbor's wife. But first, allow me to introduce myself. I am Maria Antonnette Gilos and I am also joined by my fellow presenters starting with Kevin Falcon, Christine Lariba, and Princess Merose Santos. And with that, let's begin.
Good day once again. I am Kevin Falcon, the first reporter. So according to Exodus chapter 20 verse 17, gi-emphasize diri ang importance of guarding one's thoughts and desires. So according to Exodus again chapter 20 verse 17, ang ikasiyam nga commandment is mo siya you shall not covet your neighbor's wife. So it teaches that coveting is specifically nakigusto sa asawa sa uban, which is kanang is not just a matter of outward actions like adultery, but also inwards attitudes. So kaning nga commandment warns against harboring inappropriate desires or fantasizing about someone in a committed relationship. Like for example, is murag ilog nimo ang asawa sa uban, which is let's say kanang minjo na siya ba, so yung nga nga pangitaboa, highlighting that true faithfulness involves both behavior and inner actions. So the next slide is about when does it begin. So makaingon ta nga kanus man jud may tabo ang kanang, like for example, nakay gusto sa asawa sa uban. So according to Matthew chapter 5 verse 28, anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. So nagsugod ni siya sa kanang lustful or kanang pagnanasa sa katawo, like lain nimong pananaw ba, like gusto na jud nimo nga buhaton na ingana. According to Matthew chapter 5 verse 28, gi-reveal ani that even looking at someone with lustful intent is equivalent na siya nga hingkomit na kaog adultery. This teaching gi-emphasize diri that moral failure starts with inner desires and thoughts. Mo na sa gingon gina nga nagsugod yun na siya sa hunahuna or sa thoughts, or naguna-una nakagdima or like nakay pagnanasa sa katao is makonsider na siya as sin. And also una din makuha nimo mag desire, so gusto nimo nang mabuhat jud nimo. And guarding one's heart and mind is crucial to living a life of purity and integrity. So mao nang ang lesson jud dire is sa na jud nang sa unahuna para man, and then how much more kung imo nang i-translate imong thoughts into action. The next slide is which is the last slide of my report. And this slide is all about concupiscence. So when we say concupiscence, it refers to strong human desires, especially those that oppose reason. Like grabe na jud imong pagnanasa sa katao, grabe nimong pagtan-aw or taas, or grabe na jud nga nakay gustong buhaton or nga dili mao, which is unethical nga action. And in Christian theology, gi-describe ani ang inclination of the sensitive appetite to rebel against rational control and stemming from original sin. So it represents the conflict between flesh and spirit, leading individuals towards sin even if it's not sinful in itself. That's all, and thank you for your attention.
The 9th Commandment, or you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, is not only about avoiding external actions like adultery. It goes deeper, addressing the inner desires of our hearts. This is where the concept of concupiscence or disordered desires comes in. Now, let us take a closer look at what the Catechism of the Catholic Church refers to as the three kinds of covetousness or concupiscence. These represent the inner struggles that incline us towards sin, driven by our disordered desires. So, we have three. So, the first one is the lust of the flesh, and then followed by the lust of the eyes, and lastly is the pride of life. Let's first discuss the lust of the flesh. So, lust of the flesh refers to an excessive or unnatural craving for physical pleasures, things that bring comfort or satisfaction to our body. This can include food, drink, sensual experiences, or even indulging too much in rest and luxury. The Catechism of the Catholic Church describes these as the pleasures of the senses. When fleshy desires rule us, taking priority over God's will, they cause us to violate God's righteousness. They become lust. For example, hunger propels us to find food. But eating is good. Ug dili ni siya sala kay bisan gay si Jesus during sa iyang ministry ari sa kalibutan kay nikaon man og niinom. Mahimo man ning sala if the hunger becomes a lust for food and it turns to gluttony, which is a sin according to Proverbs chapter 23 verse 20 to 21. While enjoying these things in moderation, it is natural and even necessary. Problems arise when these desires become too strong, when we start seeking pleasure for its own sake, ignoring self control, balance, or even moral values. The second form of covetousness is the lust of the eyes. So this refers to an excessive or unnatural desire for possessions, whether things we see, things we want, or things we feel we need to make us happy. The Catechism describes this as covetousness for earthly goods. It's when we start focusing more on material things than on our own values that truly matter, like our relationship, faith, and inner peace. So examples of this are the following. First one is greed. This is when someone constantly wants more, whether it's money, possessions, or status. For instance, a person might always be striving to accumulate wealth, not because kay ato mang need, but because they feel like they can never have enough. The second is envy. So it is when we feel jealous of what others have. For example, you might see someone with the latest phone or car and instead nga malipay ka para nila, you start wishing that napo kay same nga butang sama sa ila. Envy can also make us focus on what others have, which distract us from appreciating the blessings we already have. Then the next example is consumerism and materialism. In modern society, consumerism is a prime example of lust of the eyes. So people are constantly exposed to advertisements which highlights the latest trends, gadgets, and the luxurious lifestyle. This can create an artificial need for things we might not even want at first. For instance, you might see someone on social media showing off their new clothes or gadgets and then feel compelled to buy similar things even if you don't improve your happiness or life. So, lust of the eyes is harmful in a sense that when we let the lust of the eyes take over, we start valuing material things more than meaningful, lasting experiences or relationships. It fosters a culture of comparison, greed, and dissatisfaction. The third form of covetousness is the pride of life. This refers to a kind of rebellion or disobedience against God where a person seeks to elevate themselves above others and even above God's authority. It manifests the sin such as egotism, pride, selfishness, arrogance, and even atheism. The Catechism of the Catholic Church calls this a self assertion contrary to the dictates of reason. In other words, it is when we act as though we don't need God or anyone else and believe we are above others or even the divine law. At the extreme, pride of life can even lead to a complete rejection of God. People who believe they can live without God or that they are in control of everything act with arrogance, refusing to acknowledge the Creator's role in their life. This can stem from thinking they are self sufficient and don't need divine guidance or intervention.
Good day, everyone. I am Christine Lariba, and I'm going to discuss why following the Ninth Commandment important. Following the Ninth Commandment, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, is a crucial for cultivating purity, chastity, and a life of integrity. It encourages individuals to control their desires and maintain a pure heart and mind, avoiding lustful thoughts and actions by restraining covetous desires. Individuals can focus on building healthy relationships and fostering a society based on respect and fidelity. Nindot jud na way gubot imong kasilinganan or Wa kay kaaway na silingan tungod kay wa ka nagpantasya sa iyang asawa, wa ka nagplano na ilugon ang usa ka tawo na naana sa usa ka committed na relationship. Respeto lang di kay tungod kay gaaway-away imo nang i-comfort with other purpose in mind. Know your boundaries and where you stand in that kind of situation and not take advantage of what is happening. Next is pure in heart means that sincere ka sa imong mga gipangbuhat. Honest ka, wa ka mamakak sa mga tao para itago ang mga way nindot nimong buhat like nag-cheat ka sa imong partner, nakikita kag lain, nakik-chat kag lain without your partner's knowledge and wa ka naghuna-huna o manakit sa usa ka tawo like gipatay nimo, gipriso nimo, gipasakitan nimo para laman di mo gawas ang tinuod. The heart is where your moral decision comes from. Dinhi nagsugod makabuhatag maadyo or dili. Like tungod sa atong kasing-kasing, makabuhat kag di maadyo tungod nahigugma ka sa usa ka tawo na naanay katipon or naanay asawa wa na ka naghuna-huna na naa kay masakitan lain tao aron malabanan ang usa ka tukso na gusto nimo na imo pero di maadyo like ngilog kag asawa na di imo dapat hinluan nato atong kasing-kasing ug maningkamot ta na kontrolo nato atong kaugalingon na di nato mabuhat ang dili maayo. Being pure in heart means aligning our mind and with and will with God's holiness, especially through charity or love is the highest form of love because it signifies the unique selfless love God gave to us na mas unahon paning nimo ang gusto or kamaayuhan sa uban kaysa sa imong kaugalingon. Next is chastity or sexual purity. Refers to the state of not engaging in sexual activity, often associated with celibacy or abstinence from sexual intercourse. Next is love of truth and faith. Means that you have committed to truth, you're not lying to yourself, you're not being hypocritical, and you believe in the Word of God, its commandments, and its judgment and its promises. Even now, purity helps us see with God's perspective, respect others as neighbors, and see the human body as a temple of the Holy Spirit and reflection of God's beauty. Next is battle of purity. Battle of purity is an ongoing struggle even after baptism. While baptism confers purification from sins, it doesn't eliminate the temptation of concupiscence. There are two ways to overcome these desires with God's grace. First, by the virtue and gift of chastity. This virtue allows for love with undivided heart, suggesting a pure and selfless form of love. Next is by purity of intention. This involves seeking the truth, purpose of life, and aligning one's action with God's will. It emphasizes simplicity and clarity of vision in fulfilling God's plan. This battle is a continuous process of striving for purity and aligning one's life and God's will despite persistent temptations.
So, modesty and purity in Christian life. So, modesty, a key part of purity and temperance, protects the dignity of a person by guiding how we dress, how we act, and treat others with respect. It reflects chastity and promotes patience, decency, and self-control in relationship. Modesty also resists unhealthy curiosity and inappropriate media, encouraging a way of life that values inner dignity. Though it varies across cultures, modesty always points to the spiritual worth of each person. True freedom comes from living by moral truth, and the gospel continues to renew hearts and cultures by upholding purity and human dignity. So, So this defines that ang modesty and purity with a Christian context is it emphasizes modesty's role in protecting um, human dignity by influencing behaviors, interactions, and media consumption. So, ang kini highlights that while cultural expressions differ, the core principle of valuing each person's spiritual worth remains constant. So, true freedom, according to the text, stems from living a moral life guided by the gospel's teaching on purity and human dignity. So the virtues to acquire is number 1 is purity of intention for someone, number 2 chastity, number 3 is modesty. So the purity of intention for someone is nag-refer siya to having selfless and morally upright motives when interacting with or acting towards sa laing person. So, it implies acting out of genuine care and concern, free from ulterior motives or selfish desire. So, pure good ang iyahang intention sa lain nga tao. Like, walay laing nga, something na. And then, chastity. So, this is traditionally refers to the virtue of sexual purity and self-control. It involves abstaining from sexual activity outside the context of marriage and maintaining respectful attitude towards sexuality. So in a broader sense, it can encompass purity of thought and action in all aspects of life. 3 is modesty. So this virtue involves humility and self-awareness. It's about recognizing one's limitations and avoiding arrogance or excessive self-promotion. It also often relates to appropriate dress and behavior, avoiding actions that draw undue attention or are disrespectful to others. So ganing mga kanang manamit o kanang tarong, like dili revealing or inana, or ang imong behavior is kanang di ka bastos inana. So the violations and offenses. So number 1 is impure thoughts. So this refers to having thoughts that are sexually suggestive, lustful, or other morally objectionable. It emphasizes that even internal thoughts can have a significant impact on one's character and action. So kanagay mga bastos ug na inana. Di ba siya na maayo ni nana? And sa kalain nila gunahuna makabuhat sad sila kanang bastos nga na. Yeah. Number 2 is pursuing someone committed. This highlights the ethical wrong of pursuing a romantic or sexual relationship with someone who is already in a committed relationship. So kanang magkabit-kabit nga na. It underscores the importance of respecting other people's relationships and commitment. So, if kay ba ka nga in a relationship ng usa ka tao, ilahan na to. Di na ka mag-apil-apil. Kay, di ba siya mayo na inana. And makasakit ka sa laing tao and silang relationship. Behaving inappropriately. This is a broad category encompassing actions that are sexually suggestive, disrespectful, or otherwise inappropriate in a given social context. It emphasizes the need for proper conduct and decorum. So behaving inappropriately kanang So number 4 is manipulation or coercion. So this points to the serious ethical transgression or of using manipulative tactics or coercion to influence someone's decision, but particularly in relation to sexual activity. So this emphasizes the importance of consent and respect for autonomy. So magmanipulate ka sa laing tao nga kunahay imo lang dapat buhaton ni nimo inana kay ug di nimo buhaton nana nana kami na magmanipulate og tao kay para mabuhat kung unsay imuhang gusto bisag dili sakto nana. Lust or concupiscence. This refers to strong sexual desire, often uncontrolled or excessive, that can lead to immoral actions. It highlights the importance of self-control and moderation in sexual matters. So kanang mm, like hugaw or bastos na kaghuna-huna inana like magbinastos na pagkag-action and di nimo makontrol, which is wrong.
The ninth commandment, or you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, is about more than just avoiding physical adultery. It calls us to guard our hearts and minds against disordered desires that lead us away from God's plan for love, purity, and respect in our relationships. Obeying this commandment allows us to live in harmony with others and align ourselves with God's will, fostering stronger relationships and a more virtuous life.